Thanks, Jim. So I'm going to confess that this was a really challenging presentation to put together because I do want to talk about some technical stuff, but I would like to get to a sort of higher order conversation as quickly as possible. So I'm going to fly through some of the technical things and hopefully preserve enough time at the end for us to talk about something more meaningful, but not without attribution. And recognizing that Marie Selvanadin, Tom Woodward, and Yianna Vovides put on the Just a Community Organizer presentation in Domains 2017. That was the thing I walked away with the most influenced by, and all of this is really just a love letter to them. I've been working on, we at Muhlenberg have been working on this project since, and so these are some of the choices that we decided. But a little bit of background, we're entering our fourth year, our third sort of full academic year. We had a pilot year. We have 849 cPanel accounts, over 1,000 WordPress sites, fewer than 100 non-WordPress sites, but we have 432 sites in our community.bergbuilds.domains and growing. And we just held our first awards called the MVs this last spring, which were fantastic. And the community site actually really helped us in terms of nominations and everything else. The nomination form was there. We promoted it there. And I don't think would have had the same kind of exposure to the work that our students, staff, and faculty were doing if we hadn't had a community site to reference. So that's it. Let me see. I'm working backwards and in the opposite direction. This is our community site. So if you just wanted to see faculty work, for instance, or just faculty research or portfolios or whatever, it is faceted, and I'll talk about what that means again here in just a second. So yeah, real quickly, we wanted to build our community site on a domain. I wanted it to be flat, and for a lot of reasons. Partially to avoid unnecessary overhead, but if you don't have to maintain authentication credentials, why should you? And I thought there might be a way for us to do that. It will feature more than just WordPress sites. Faceted means like when you're shopping for clothes online, I want to see seasonal stuff. I only want the summer stuff, and I only want pants, right? That's two different things. It's not a single hierarchical classification, it's a faceted classification. So we wanted to be able to do faculty, staff, and students, research, blogs, etc., and eventually maybe WordPress, Omeka, Scalar. We want to be able to keep adding facets. So I wanted what we built to be able to support that. This is the interesting stuff that we'll get to. We wanted it to be a juried site because we didn't want to raise the profile of someone who was goofing around, right, and breaking things and experimenting. We didn't necessarily want to call people out for just another WordPress site taglines or things like that. We wanted a way to, well, okay, maybe a little.
I did, but then you.
We wanted to spotlight in, it's a community we're building, and so we wanted to present the best of what we're up to. And okay, so here's the technical stuff. I found out from Tom that Reclaim Hosting can, as a nightly report or a weekly report or whatever, they can drop off for me this file called Muhlenberg installs.json. We created a complementary file called jury.json, and I'll show you how we did that in just a second. I used PHP to sort of parse both of those files and, like shuffling a deck of cards, like bring those two things together. And then I found Node and Puppeteer as a way of writing a script to just go out on the web and generate all the thumbnails that I need, so that I wasn't like, dragging and clicking and saving. It just did all that stuff in an automated way. I used an HTML5 up template to build the site, and that allowed me to leverage jQuery and this really cool jQuery library, or JavaScript library called Isotope.js. Okay, so 100 miles an hour, ready? Hold on. Okay. That's basically what I described. You take two JSON files, you bring them together through some sort of transformation. I wrote that in PHP, and I have it running on a cron script, which you can do in cPanel. It's awesome. I have this juried site again going to this Puppeteer. Well, it's a Node script that calls Puppeteer, which is a kind of a headless browser. It pretends to be a full-blown web browser. There's no human being clicking on anything, but it renders HTML and all that stuff as if it were loading in a browser. And from there, I can take that snapshot. And these two things then come together to build that community site using some more fancy JavaScript stuff that I really don't know how to do. I just kind of like went on, you know, SourceForge and bug people and all that stuff. Okay, one caveat. Please be cautious with that your school installs.json file. It contains database passwords to people's WordPress databases. So it has to live a level up from your public_HTML directory, and then you call it as an include from whatever PHP file you're writing. If you don't understand that, no big deal, bug me after the conference and I'll show you exactly what I mean. But you don't want that available with a click from viewing the source of the community site that you build. It'll expose a lot of people's databases. Okay, but from that file, you can get the URL of a site, you can get the title of your WordPress site, you can get your tagline. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there that you can get. All right, and that's basically what it looks like in JSON. So my site is Simula Crumbly, and my tagline is inside my browser I'm made of cookies. And my URL is up in there somewhere. Thanks. Okay, so here's what we did to build the jury site. This will eventually not be in Google Sheets. I have an aspirational goal to get everything on a domain. But it worked really well for distributing the selection of the community sites. And honestly, the more eyes, the fairer the process I felt. So we had our digital learning assistants who are students at Muhlenberg. We had faculty and we had staff all participating in selecting the sites to go in our community site. It also let me just create an affiliation column and categories, like it's a course site, it's a portfolio, it's a travel site, whatever. And all of that stuff with a single Google Sheets extension can be exported as a JSON file, and that's it, right? Super simple. If I wanted to hot sync this Google Sheet, I could using something called Tabletop.js, or there are other ways to do that. What I chose to do is to do periodic sort of manual exports of this file just using this Google Sheets add-on. Then, oh yeah, and that's what it looks like as a JSON file. So now you start to get, you know, really nice, easy, structured data. And within PHP, you just call some different functions that are sort of built right into PHP that let you sort of parse that tree. Anyone who's ever done anything in PHP with XML or any other kind of structured data, it's fairly straightforward. Okay. This is the thing that I think I'm proudest of. The whole transformation file is only about 46 lines of code without comment. And it's essentially just two arrays. It's a loop within a loop. And you bring in the stuff, and then you write out the other stuff. And I don't know, it worked. I tried it, it worked. Okay, this is a Node script that calls Puppeteer, and I had to install it on my laptop, but eventually I am confident that we can get this running as a Node app on a domain. That's my real fancy project for the summer. Once you do that, this can also run on a cron, right? So you add new sites to your juried list, and overnight you can set it to run every night, and you can stretch it out. There's like a throttle that you can put in here because some of these pictures, you know, can take a little while to load, and it can just run and add the new thumbnails while we're sleeping. Now this is the real fun thing. I'm going to jump back out. I'm going to jump out to this site. So this was written by geniuses who call themselves metaphysi.co. This is a JavaScript library that allows you to take some list of things that's in JSON, and then you can animate them and reorder them just by whatever categories you assign. And as you can see, it's faceted, right? So I can choose stuff over here and stuff over here, and if I wanted to, I could add a third thing and a fourth thing or whatever. Right? Isn't that awesome? And I don't know how it works. It's like magic, but it works pretty good. Okay. So, future work. We're getting to be around 500, and I think that's a tipping point for needing pagination. Otherwise, the scroll is just way too long. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'll figure it out. We want to move Google Sheets to something else. We want to bring in Omeka sites and Scalar sites and basically everything else. And Tim Owens has told me that Muhlenberg installs file doesn't have to just be WordPress sites. It can be everything that's installed with a database. Right. And we'll get to flat HTML sites here in just a second, because there's a way around that too. Get Puppeteer running as a Node app, I mentioned. A little better automation, because right now it slams us at a couple of times in the semester, and it would be nicer if it could be a little more automated. And I want to get all of this stuff documented and available on GitHub. So, okay, so now the conversation. This raises some really interesting ethical questions, right? Around inclusion and exclusion. Around mechanisms for people to opt in if they feel that they were excluded unfairly, and opt out if they don't want to play. And issues of preservation, and probably a whole bunch of other ones that I haven't thought of, but you are thinking of already. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. I want to jump back over to the community site, if I can, and just show you that all the way at the bottom, this is that pagination thing, right? All the way at the bottom, I have this opt-in, opt-out form. And it's also a way, should someone need to report objectionable material that might land on a community, which, knock wood, we haven't had to face. But I think that, this is a pretty good way to do it. All you have to do is just paste the URL, and your email address and whatever feedback you want, and that's it. We would just take that URL, paste it into the Google Sheet for now, and we would apply the categorization, or someone else could, and that's how it works. So, okay, that's kind of to get things started. I don't know if we have a ton of time left. 5 minutes. 5 minutes? We got 5 minutes just to have a discussion around what does it mean to be a good, ethical, inclusive community. The pedagogical rationale for why this makes sense was covered in 2017 by Tom and his colleagues. I'm sure we're connecting the dots as to why bringing everybody kind of into work in visibility with one another makes sense for domains. But how do you go about deciding who gets in and who doesn't? How might you? Yeah.
So you've got the opt-in and opt-out form here. Was the initial thing that you loaded everything from Tim's master list, or did you wait until people started opting in? Or
no, I took the whole master JSON file that I got. It was from there. It was super easy to get it into Google Sheets, and my colleagues and I spent about a week just clicking on every link. And honestly, the only things in that first pass that didn't make it in were folks who took the default theme, never deleted the hello world post and comment, did 3 blog posts for class and then jumped off and looks like they never touched it again. So otherwise, if there was any sort of sign of personal ownership and interest in that beyond just fulfilling the rudiments of the assignment, we threw it in. And yeah.
And then we came back around, and Tim really scrutinized that initial criteria and ultimately convinced us all that just because the student or the faculty didn't delete the just another WordPress site tag shouldn't exclude them automatically from the database.
Yeah, it was really the accumulation of those signs. Not any one was disqualifying, right? It was kind of, but I think there's even a better way to do it than that. And I just don't know what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the question about the community site and actual having domains at your school already as a community is kind of interesting, because I think you're already opting in some degree, right? So I think there are things at the level of, you have this at your school, what are the questionable things that somebody would do even if they didn't get on the community portal, right? If something happens outside of this, but on a domain as part of domain of one's own at your school, that's still kind of in that community and doing that in that community. So I think that question is interesting, thinking about both communities, because the community is already there even before the portal.
Yeah, and it's just not, it's disorganized, right? That's why just another community, or just a community organizer is such a great way of thinking about this work, because you're getting out there and you're trying. But, you could privilege the most recent blog post. That's been one strategy for elevating the visibility or doing the sort, right? That's a choice. It's an ethical consideration. I'm not even comfortable with the fact that when we set it up, I randomized the IDs to assign to these. But Lily is going to sit in the prime boardwalk Park Place real estate for the rest of that semester until we mix it up again. And, what's the trade-off between findability and discoverability? Now we're getting into those serious librarian questions that, we can really have to drag around for days.
Great. I'd like you all to join me in thanking him.